I had this dream Sunday night, so it was March 6th of 2016, and I was at the ocean at the beach with my mom and my dad and another person. And I'll just want to put this in there. I had this dream on the other person's birthday. Okay. It was really dark and overcast. There was a huge black clouds everywhere. The waves were gigantic. The winds were so strong you had to yell to hear each other when you were talking. So this giant storm going on. And it was one of the worst storms ever in history anywhere in this dream, okay? And the internet was down, and people all over the world were outraged because they couldn't access the internet or get on Facebook. And one thing I want to mention about this is I used to date a guy who was a lineman, and when the power would go out, people would call up the power company and start screaming at the people, the operators, like, how dare the power go out? Like, they had no idea that the weather affected things, and sometimes they'd have to shut, so they just didn't have a clue. And they would be nasty about it. Like, you better get that right on right this second. And not a clue as to how dangerous the job can be and how long it takes a person to drive to the actual location. Just oblivious. So I wanted to put that out there because people, because they couldn't get on Facebook or the internet, were just outraged and nasty. And we're not even considering that a large people, a large amount of people on the earth were affected by this, and that there was property damage, loss of life. People couldn't travel. They weren't going to be able to go out and get food and water, or, their water was out because their electricity was out, and they were flooding in places. They weren't concerned about it at all. They were just angry. And they had no compassion for one another. They didn't even care. They just wanted their creature comforts back, and they weren't nice about it or nice to one another and helpful at all. So I'm at the beach, and I'm with these people, and we're next to a big city, like a big city. And there was this really gigantic cable. I don't even know what the diameter would be. I mean, it was huge. I couldn't wrap my hands around it, that's for sure. I have small hands, but I mean, it was gigantic. And it was the telecommunications cable. And it was running from the ocean up onto the beach, and it was attached to this building where all the information was coming and going. And I kept looking at my dad and looking at my mom and thinking, wow, well, the winds are picking up, and that thing is already this huge, heavy cable that was coming out of the ocean or going into the ocean, depending on you know, how you perceive it. It was being whipped around wildly, and we could tell it was going to rip off of the building eventually. That's how violent this storm was, and the clouds were black, and the wind and the waves were just insane. So we knew once the cable ripped off, it was going to be a really, really bad thing, and it would make the situation worse. And so this other person was off checking at a store, or I'm not really sure. They went off to check on something and they came back. And the three of us were trying to explain to this person, this is a really bad storm, and it's not going to get any better. And a lot of people are just clueless about what's really, really happening. They're oblivious. They have no idea what this storm really is. And we're trying to get that message across to this person. And we tried to explain that, and this person was like, yeah, it's pretty bad, huh? And yeah, these people are pretty angry, and they weren't really catching on. And my mom and my dad and myself, we were all like, yeah, this is just a sign of the times, and you need to wake up. In terms of biblically, we were like, snap out of it, start paying attention. It's important. And we weren't trying to be scary, but we were trying to impress that it was very important. So, in realizing that the cable was going to snap off of this building at any point and wreak even more havoc, it actually did. And we knew that things were going to very quickly turn a lot worse. And for some odd reason, my dad and I decided we needed to cross this bay, this little bay area or inlet, to go over and do something really important. Now, I have no clue what that could have been, but there was a small boat, and I let him drive the boat, and he was really very weak because he was battling illness. But I let him get on the boat because I felt it was safer for him to be on the boat. And I decided to get on this bizarre, almost like a paddle board that had been rigged with a motor and a seat that actually looked like it would tip right over. And so you had to sit on the seat and work the motor and go across. Well, we decided we were going to try to cross this little inlet and accomplish whatever the mission was. And we started getting out, and we got out so far, and I couldn't believe how far we got out considering how bad the waves were. I couldn't believe we didn't tip over or anything. And at one point, I got ahead of him and kept trying to turn around and look back. And I could hear he was struggling. And the waves got so bad that, I don't know if you've ever been in the ocean and you've been in a storm or you've been in high seas, you know that depending on the boat you have, you need to keep it aimed at the waves so that you don't capsize. So we weren't in anything big, and it would have been very difficult to try and turn around and go back for one another, or turn around and get back to the beach we came from. So I could hear him struggling, and his boat actually capsized, and I could hear him struggling and drowning, and I tried to turn my little craft around, and that was when I woke up. I realized that neither one of us made it, and we had both drowned. So the weird thing is when I woke up from this dream, I realized that the whole reason I had this dream was to tell this person to start paying attention and to try and, understand what's going on in the world, and to start reading their Bible and listen to what, you know, listen to what it says in the Bible and correlate it to what's going on in this time. And I felt like the storm was real, yet at the same time a metaphor for it's coming. So I wound up telling my mom about the dream first, and I said I really feel like that the whole reason I had this dream was to tell this person, hey, this is what this dream was about. And you know so I did tell that person the dream and some other things, and think they're starting to see what's happening, so that's a good thing. It was a scary dream, but in a way it was a blessing. So very, very scary storm that was happening, and this one person with us was completely oblivious to what's really, really happening in the world. And I believe that that's what the dream was about.